Well, good evening, hello, and welcome back to Rainbow Investing. We examine a spectrum of ideas to improve your long-term wealth. Now, today we're going to talk about something a little different, the upcoming American presidential election. I'm sure you've seen your fair share of coverage of the US election up until now. It's basically everywhere in the news. But tonight we're going to talk about how exactly the election might impact the stock market and what it could mean for your share portfolio. Before we get going any further, guys, I would really like it if you guys could just smash the like button for me. It really helps out my channel, and it honestly takes you like 2 seconds, so I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Now, normally elections aren't massive market-moving events, but this particular election is shaping up to be one that I think can be a significant market-moving event. And we'll go through why in a minute. We're going to look at the policies of both Donald Trump and Joe Biden and look through them to see how they might impact stocks, the stock market, and your share portfolio. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video because we will be looking at another aspect of this election that I think has an even bigger impact on the share market than the presidential election itself. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, as you probably know, the US presidential election is a contest between the incumbent Republican, Donald Trump, and his Democratic Party challenger, Joe Biden. Now, Joe Biden is a former vice president. He served as vice president under Barack Obama. And of course, Donald Trump has been president for the last 4 years, after winning the 2016 election against Hillary Clinton. Now, you might think, why are we talking about politics on an investing channel? The reality is, even though this is not a political channel, and I'm not endorsing either candidate or getting involved in the debate about who should be president of the United States, politics does matter when it comes to investing. The kind of policies that a US president or the US government can implement can have a direct impact on the share market and the companies within it. So let's talk about that for a minute. So in terms of economic policy, Donald Trump is essentially running on his record. I took a little visit to his campaign website and I couldn't really find much in the way of future plans. But what he did talk about was his record over the last 4 years. Perhaps Donald Trump's signature policy is the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Now, this was one of the biggest tax law overhauls that America has seen in decades. This act slashed the US corporate tax rate from 35% to 19%. And that's in addition to deep income tax cuts across the board. This is the tax law that's really underpinned Donald Trump's economic message. And it's actually been partly responsible for the massive share market gains we saw between 2017 and the start of 2020. And even though it's projected to add approximately $2.3 trillion to the national debt over 10 years, it has been extremely popular with Donald Trump's base and, of course, the investing community for obvious reasons. Now, of course, not all of Donald Trump's policies have been completely pro-business. He has implemented quite a number of tariffs, particularly against China. Now, while tariffs might be good for certain industries in the US economy, it's generally regarded that tariffs are not overly positive for economic growth over the long term. He's also renegotiated trade agreements such as NAFTA, and these have also added some protectionist policies to the US economy. But overall, Donald Trump's economic message is one of low taxes and pro-business, pro-growth. So now let's turn to his challenger, Joe Biden. Since Joe Biden is a Democrat, you'd probably be forgiven for believing that he believes in a sort of tax and spend policy, and that's pretty much correct from what I can gather from his policies. Joe Biden is promising to raise the corporate tax rate from 19% to 28%, so not quite at its old level, but still a significant hike. He is also planning on repealing a lot of the income tax cuts that came with Donald Trump's 2017 tax law. However, he does stress that anyone earning under $400,000 a year will not see their taxes go up. He's also promising to implement some tax penalties for companies that ship jobs offshore. And he has also promised to raise the top income tax bracket to 39.6%. So normally when we talk about elections, we have Democrats versus Republicans. And normally it's the contest between big government, the Democrats, and small government with the Republicans. Democrats have a reputation for tax and spend policies, whereas Republicans have a reputation for cutting taxes and cutting government spending. Big government, small government. However, this election is not a normal contest, and I do not believe we are seeing a distinction between big government and small government with this election. Donald Trump has not been a traditional Republican president in terms of economic policy. Government spending has actually accelerated during his administration, as you can see here. US government debt has risen every single year since he's been in office and is projected to explode this year for obvious reasons. Yes, Donald Trump has cut taxes quite substantially, but he has also presided over a large increase in government spending. I'm not criticizing him for this, of course, that's just the facts. Now, if Donald Trump wins the election, I don't see any reason why he would change what he's been doing over the last 4 years over the next 4 years. So therefore, I actually think that this election will be good for the share market no matter who wins. Because on one hand, you have tax and spend policies coming from Joe Biden, and on the other, you have cutting taxes and spend policies coming from Donald Trump. Both of these policies are pretty good for the economy, and therefore they're good for the companies within the economy that are, of course, on the share market. However, I do want to talk about another factor in this election, because of course this election isn't just about electing a new president. All 435 members of the US House of Representatives are also up for re-election, as well as 1/3 of the US Senate. Now, in America, to pass major legislation, you need to get it through the House, the Senate, and then the President needs to sign off on it. Now, at the moment, the Democrats have quite a convincing majority in the US House, and it looks like they will be keeping that majority after this election, unless something major happens. However, the US Senate is currently very much in play. The Senate is currently controlled by the Republican Party, Donald Trump's party. But most polls are predicting a very close contest to see which party will control the Senate after the election. Now, this is very important because in America, you need the support of both the House and the Senate, as well as the President, to sign off on any big legislation. And if one party controls the House and another party controls the Senate, the chances of any big spending bills passing are far lower. So let's run through some scenarios. Say there is a landslide Democratic win, Joe Biden wins the presidency, and the Democrats win a healthy majority in the Senate, as well as keeping their majority in the House of Representatives. Under that situation, Democrats basically have no constraints over their tax and spend policies. They can implement anything they really want, within reason, of course. Therefore, I think if the Democrats win the trifecta, that is the House, the Senate, and the presidency under Joe Biden, it would actually be a really good outcome for the share market because there'll be a lot of extra government spending, albeit with some tax increases. However, what if, say, Donald Trump wins the presidency and the Democrats keep the House, but the Republicans also keep the Senate? Under that situation, we have what's called a divided government. Now, because President Trump isn't your traditional small government Republican, as we talked about earlier, this scenario isn't quite as good as the Democrat trifecta, but because laws will need the support of both Democrats and Republicans, there is far higher potential for laws to get blocked and no stimulus to be passed. So I would rate that situation as sort of moderate outcome for the share market. However, let's talk about if Joe Biden wins the presidency and the Senate stays in Republican hands. That is still a divided government situation. But because you have a tax and spend president in charge, but a Republican control of the Senate, I actually think that there is very little chance of major government legislation passing into law. Thus, I don't think that situation will be good for the share market at all. And if that's the outcome we get the day after the election, then I think we might see some volatility on the share market as a result. Alright guys, there you have it. That's my analysis of the election and how it will affect the stock market. Because the outcome of this election has the potential to move the share market and result in some significant tax and spending policies, it really is important to us investors to understand the outcomes, even if you don't like politics that much. And remember, even though the media is concentrating on the presidential election, those congressional elections do have an impact as well. Those elections for the House and particularly the Senate this round. However, I just want to end by saying that in the long run, most elections don't end up impacting the share market over decades and decades. You never see an election turn the stock market down for long anyway. And in the past, the stock market has gone on to reach new highs under both Democrat and Republican presidents. So there you have it guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Remember, if you like this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up. It really helps my channel out immensely. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back with some more videos soon. But for now, good night.